County Detention Center for a few months to wait on my bed at Morris Village. 28 days in Morris Village. You know, Oxford House, we'll get to Oxford House, but there weren't that many recovery housing options at the time, and my counselor, very well-meaning, wanted to send me to this place, still in operation day in Columbia, and normally I wouldn't have cared. You know, I just wanted to go to the next place. I had come to the point in my using of substances and the complete destruction of my relationships, my lack of being able to parent my child, my lack of being able to be there for my dying mother. Like, I was just done. So I was kind of at the point, just send me anywhere, right? They told me where they were sending me, and I had a friend who had been there, and they prayed the gay away. And, you know, I was like, I just don't think that's gonna work for so many reasons. Yeah, anyway, and I'm bisexual, by the way, that, you know, whatever, but I didn't want that prayed away either, you know. I had 99 problems, and my sexual orientation and gender identity were not one of the 99. So, like, thanks, y'all, let's just leave that there. So anyway, I was able to get into a place, again, a little bit more about me, and we will share personal stories, because in the realm of recovery, like, it's our personal stories. Like, we can be numbers or we can be stories, and I prefer to be a story, not a cautionary tale. Like 10 years ago, I've been a cautionary tale, like, see her, don't do that, you know. But now today, like, we can be stories. So anyway, you know, I'm an only child, had one aunt on one side, no aunts or uncles on the other. My parents died pretty early in my adulthood, so by the time I found recovery at the age of 38, I burnt every bridge. Like, I literally, like, I was an only child, came from a good family, should have had some money, spent all that, you know, like, it was me. I had no clothes, I had nothing, I had 5 felonies, I had active hepatitis C, I had 8 years of probation hanging over my head, I hadn't seen my kid in about 2 years. Thank God her dad was a good guy, not an addict, because she was never in the system. But I needed a safe place to go, and that place turned out to be Oxford House. So what Oxford Houses are, in essence, we are a structured roommate environment for people seeking recovery from substance use disorder. We're a national nonprofit. We were founded in 1975 by some drunkish lawyers and lobbyists and in Silver Spring, Maryland. You can go on YouTube, 60 Minutes, the origin story. But yes, our founding fathers, and they were all fathers, us ladies, us folks showed up, you know, in the past few decades. But our founding fathers, literally drunk lawyers and lobbyists from the DC area, so they knew that they could not pay staff to run this house. You know, they were in the house, and it was shutting down as a county halfway house, so they decided that they were going to run it themselves. So how do you do that? Democratically, of course. I mean, back then democracy meant something, but that's another story. So anywho, so every house, and there's about 5 in this neighborhood. Gardendale, we got them, Forest Acres, we got them all over the state. We got about 30 in Columbia. You've probably passed by several and not even known. Why? Because we are not institutional. Like, we are a residential home, and each house, the membership of each house is under the law. Actually, RBG's first read decision, or whatever, I'm not that legal, you know. Anyway, was in the 90s, the City of Edmonds versus Oxford House, Inc., and RBG read that decision that gave Oxford House residents reasonable accommodation to live as a single family. So with that, we can be in neighborhoods, we can forego the no more than, you know, 6 unrelated individuals, or all that stuff. So Oxford House, in its essence, is a sober sorority or sober fraternity. There's no house mom, there's no house manager. It's literally the members of the house. They vote in who they're voting in. They do weekly business meetings, who's done their chores, you know, who's paid their weekly share of expenses, and then some mental health check-ins. How are you doing? Like, what, you know, have you been working a recovery program? And that's the cool part. And I'll let these folks talk. Sorry. But they were like, are you going to make us talk? Yes, but I'm going to just wear everybody out first for my talking. So anyway, with Oxford House, it's just beautiful, and I'm very proud of the work that we have done, especially in the southern states. I went to my first Oxford House convention in 2015. It was the national convention. I'd been feeling at home in Oxford House, but I saw this very tall, very fabulous trans woman in sequin flip-flops. So I was like, okay, I can get down here, you know. And I want to talk about why I'm so insistent on trans inclusivity in recovery housing. So my mom's best friend was a trans woman. She's passed away like in the 70s. She said she's in a medical book somewhere, don't know, but like maybe. So towards the end of my active drug use, my mom was super sick and I could not take care of her. I was in and out of jail. I couldn't do it. And her friend Christine, this trans woman who had helped raise me, took care of my mom when I couldn't do it. My mom passed away before I found recovery, but I found recovery, and my Oxford house was a few miles away from this woman, Christine. So I had about a year recovery, working the steps, making amends. It's really hard to make amends to dead people. So I was like, let me go make some amends to the woman who helped my mom transition. And she opened the door, and she was like a skeleton. She was at the end of her life too. So in that moment, I just knew the universe had put me in that place so I could do for her what she did for my mom, right? And everything was, we were in and out of hospitals, no big deal. And then her last hospital stay, she did not leave the hospital after this. They were trying to do the catheter. And I don't know what was in her chart again. Like, I know she married a man in the 70s because she burnt the gender marker on her paper birth certificate. Like, I don't know like what legally that looked like, but I kind of feel like they did not know she was trans. So I was like, hey, heads up, you're having a problem with the catheter. The geography, the anatomy might be a little different. And when I tell you, these medical professionals literally just a complete 180 the way they treated her, and it made me angry, you know? It made me very angry, and I'm powerless and dealing with grief issues and all this stuff. And South Carolina decided to do some dumb bathroom bill stuff. So that's how I'm gonna handle it. I can't fix death, I can't fix this, but I'm gonna march on the State House, you know, for whatever that bathroom bill was. What was going on in 2016? I feel like we always got something going on. Anyway, so that's truly how I got really involved in the trans rights movement. And then I had the opportunity as I moved on in Oxford House and became an employee in 2016. And I knew we were super cool with the gays and the bisexuals, but I didn't see trans folks in their appropriately gendered houses. And we fixed that. It's taken a lot to change the culture. We do a national training. It's really odd that our little southern state actually is one of the best in trans inclusivity in the whole nation. But I'm very proud of that. I've been saying for years, like, that is a hill I will die on. That is an Oxford House hill I will die on. I didn't know. It's 2025. I actually might, but whatever. It's a weird time we're living in. But another thing I'm very proud of is that with Oxford House, no matter where somebody is in their transition, we ask, what gender house would you be the most comfortable in? If somebody is non-binary, what gender house are you most comfortable in? Because we cannot truly build our recovery and step into our true selves if we're not in a supportive environment. And that's supportive for like recovery, that's supportive for gender identity. You know, like, you need to be supported. And that's exactly what Oxford House does. Do we do it perfectly? Absolutely not. Again, the members run the houses, so you get a few messed up personalities and the house might be off for a few weeks, you know, but but the thing is, people in Oxford House, they are creating their own recovery, because anything created in a vacuum will not last outside the vacuum. So these very strict houses, like, you're gonna work here. They had me work in retail at Kmart one time in like 2001. I've never worked retail. I was in the layaway department from Thanksgiving to Christmas. That was terrible. That was not conducive to my recovery. But they told me I needed to go do that. So I do what I'm told when I'm in recovery, you know, and get on this van and go to this meeting. And I was good while I was there, but nothing felt like mine. My year and a half in Oxford House, I chose my own meetings, I chose my own fellowship, I chose my own sponsor, I managed my own money. Not well, money coach, I still need to talk to you. I've been clean like 11 years, but anyway, you know, but what I built, I had support in building it, but it was mine to take out sustainable recovery that I built. And we have 125 houses in South Carolina, some for men, some for women, some for men with children, and women with children. So we try to cover all the bases. Who needs what? How can we support you? How can we keep families intact? And that's what we do. And I will let Austin, Lee, and Grace tell their Oxford House story. So thank you.
So I'm Austin. I am a person in long-term recovery as well. Before I came to Columbia to the Oxford House, my life was a living hell. I was on the streets. I slept in you know, tents. I've slept in my car. I've slept in a building, like a shed. I was facing a lot of jail time. I was going and stealing, coming back to my little shed, right? And like going through everything that I just got, and I was trading it to the person I shouldn't have been trading it to, just to get, you know, like my next high. So I did that for a while and thought that I was very invisible. And one day I went to the store below my aunt's house, which is where my building was, and the guy at the store told me that the police had asked him if he knew me. So I was like, wonder why, right? Well, I knew why. I wasn't as invincible as I thought I was. So I ended up facing 18 charges. I was on the news as well. Front page of the Daily Journal. In the jailbirds, you know, I had my own little section, whole page just for me, right? So special. Yeah, my family kept, you know, telling me that I needed to go to rehab. I needed to go to rehab, and I just kept blowing it off and blowing it off and blowing it off because I just didn't want to. So after I went to jail, I stayed in there for a while, and I told myself, right, like, I don't know what, but I got to do something different. But the one thing that I kept saying I wasn't going to do was go to rehab. So I'm sitting in there, and the judge done told me, like, he's going to make it possible for me to leave. So at this point, my bond was like a lot of money, you know, like close to like 70,000, I think it was. And it was a condition of a house arrest or an ankle bracelet had I been released. So I didn't have any money, you know. So my sister, one day they came and told me to pack up, and my sister was there to bond me out. And the first thing she said to me when I got in her car was, so which rehab are you going to go to, right? And so like the whole time I've been in jail, I've just been telling myself I'm not going to rehab. So I got out, started participating in favor of the upstate, because I'm from the upstate, and I met Lisa. She came and was sharing her story and, you know, talking about the Oxford House, and I was listening. And so I went home, and, you know, like, I was living with my sister at this point, but like I had just been out of jail for like 3 days. So like the fact of her wanting me to go to rehab wasn't over with, right? Like it's the next day. Have you thought about it? Do you know which one you want to go to, right? And so finally I go home and I'm like, hey, I met this lady. Her name was Lisa, and she said something about Oxford House. So we started doing research. I called the following day to a house, you know, it's no longer open now, but it was my first Oxford House ever. It was Crescent Hill. And I called them, you know, like they did the interview, and they were like, yeah, be here tomorrow. And so I'm like, okay, right? I'm so nervous, but I tell my sister, like, I have to be in Columbia tomorrow. Are we going to put a new starter on my car? And she's like, no, you're not driving your car, because you might have a bad day and come home, right? So she packs me up, buys me all new stuff, right? Spoils me, and then brings me and drops me off. So as they're leaving, her and my mom, I'm just watching the car leave and thinking, like, okay, how long they're gonna make me do this, right? Like, I don't know. I'm just gonna have to thug it out, you know? So like, I stayed in that house for about 30 days, kept begging them to come and get me, right? And then, well, for the first 2 weeks, I begged them to come and get me, and they're like, no. And so they eventually stopped answering and just started. So the one day that I talked to my mom, it was like my 90-day mark, and she finally answers the phone, and the first words were, Alston, you're not coming home. And I said, well, Mom, I was actually calling to tell you that I really like this place and I don't want to come home, right? And so I have been there for the past 3 years now, and it really helped me avoid rehab, right? I moved into the recovery house, didn't have to do the rehab, so that's a part of my story. But it also just helped me learn things that I had really like let go, like waking up and making my bed, because that's something that I really still struggle with sometimes, right? But like what I don't struggle with is the fact that they will find me for not making my bed. So they just teach me how to like live my everyday life and be productive. So yeah, they have been very successful for me. I'm very into the recovery community as well. Like I work for the Courage Center as well. I do everything that I can, you know, for the Oxford House as service work. So anything, like any questions anyone has, you guys can get my number and give me a call. I'm pretty much as helpful as I can be. If not, I'll send you Lisa's number if you don't have it and send you her way. But that's all I got to say. So Oxford House is great.
Tough acts to follow, but my name is Leah Grace, and I too am a person in long-term recovery, which for me means I've not had a drink or a drug in over 8 years. Also, pollen's been affecting my voice, so talk about dysphoria on top of that, it's fine. But now my journey's a little different. So a lot of my recovery is before I came to Oxford House, because going back in the early 2010s is when I got really active in using drugs and watched my life spiral down into a point where, out of desperation, just not to be sick, not even get high anymore, just a desperation to not feel awful and be able to show up for life, I started stealing, and then got to the point where, in my completely irrational thinking, I was like, well, I don't want to break into somebody's house because that's really personal. So instead, I'll go rob a little restaurant, and that seemed less personal. South Carolina felt differently. So honestly, I did one robbery. It scared the hell out of me. And then between that and then my dad, who I was crashing at his house at the time, finding all of my needles and everything, all that fun stuff, it was a conversation of fix it, get help, and neither one of us knew what that looked like. I didn't know how to get in touch with organizations like Kurt's. I didn't know anything about Oxford House. I didn't know any of this stuff. And so what did I do? Well, what does anybody do? I Googled it. And I found a 1-800 number, and that wasn't a good idea. And then I was able to walk into a place where somebody was able to help. I was able to go to a detox. Did that for 7 days, but I got bad advice while I was there with being strung out and all effed up. And they said, you seem like you got it together. Just go to some meetings, you'll be fine. So within 2 weeks, I was calling my dealer again, because that was my only real friend. And he had what I needed. And with that decline back into using, I just didn't care anymore. So I did 7 more armed robberies. Thank God I got arrested when I did. I did not have a bond. I spent 18 months in the county, part of which they were talking about life sentences. So I also went into jail with a full head of hair, and underneath here I no longer have that. But I also learned about recovery when I was in jail. I learned about through the 12-step program, but also just being kind of away, and also talking to people that had lived experience, even if they weren't trained, even if they were fellow people on this criminal path, and some of them had some terrible advice. Just to be able to talk to somebody else that had been through it made a big difference, right? I was able to be open about what I had gone through. I was able to be open about the crazy things I did. To a point, you really don't want to tell people in jail what crimes you may have committed that have not been charged for yet. But I was able to start to learn a little bit about it. I ended up getting sentenced. They would not offer me a plea deal, but the best they would do was drop it from 8 armed robberies to 3 armed robberies. And I went in front of a judge with what was called an open plea, where he had discretion of 10 to 30 years. I was absolutely thrilled when he said 12. So I did, in South Carolina, for a violent offense, you do 85%. So I did 10 years and 2 months in the South Carolina Department of Corrections. I just was released January 31st, 2 months ago. During that time, I did have one return to use in 2016, but from that point, I was able to find sustained recovery. I was able to get involved with 12 steps in the prison setting, helping to grow meetings. I had the opportunity in 2019 to be part of the first cohort to be trained as a peer support specialist inside the Department of Corrections. And I was able to, for the remaining 6 years of my incarceration, be a certified peer support specialist, helping people find recovery, helping people access resources, get an idea, basically being that person that I didn't have when I first thought, hey, I need to do something different, right? Also, on my own recovery journey, I was able to figure some things out, one of which is that I'm a trans woman. I was in a male prison in South Carolina. So it wasn't necessarily a pathway set, though there are some very brave, strong women who are still currently incarcerated that opened a lot of doors. So thank God for them, but also thank God for the fact that I didn't have very much longer inside before I come out, so I was able to avoid a lot of the fights that other people have to fight just to be able to be themselves. But when it came time for me to transition from being the person talking about resources with people to being the person that needed to talk about what resources I needed when I came out of prison, I wasn't sure what that looked like for me. I knew where I wanted to be. I knew how I wanted to show up, but I didn't know what living arrangements was going to look like. I had heard horror stories about fly-by-night operations that take people coming out of prison, put them to work building pallets, take all their money, and then throw them out. It's a scary prospect, and you don't have Google, you don't have even the ability just to call places and be like, hey, what are you about? You know, you're basically just trusting either people that have been there prior to, after their earlier incarceration, prior to their re-incarceration, and you're trying to trust what they have to say, and you know, instead of actually having ability to hear it from the proverbial horse's mouth, right? Luckily, with my ability and my access to the resources that I did have, I was able to get in contact with Lisa and Oxford House. And I think I would feel more comfortable living in a female environment. There wasn't an eyebrow batted or anything. It was just, okay, we'll do it. And what she said she was willing to die on that hill for me. And that, for somebody that had been incarcerated, for somebody to say, I will go to bat for you, meant the absolute world to me. So I was able to transition from, it's funny because transition gets used for coming out of prison as well as gender transitioning, so I'm double transitioning. But I was able to leave an all-male environment surrounded by concrete and wearing the same tan pajamas that I'd worn for 10 years to going to a house surrounded by other women in recovery and be accepted. I've been there for 2 months now. I'll finish with this because just this past a week ago today, which is when we have our business meetings that we talked about, and I'm the treasurer now, so they trust me with money. I used to steal it. Now they give me the money. I go to the bank for them. It's crazy. But we sat in that meeting and we were checking in and just talking about where we were. And I just said, hey, these are all the blessings that I've had happen since I've come out of my incarceration. I'm employed, I have a driver's license, I'm doing all the things. I get to show up as me. I have a wig now. And I got to hear from some of the people in the house about what their reservations were prior to me coming in and how I was able to dispel some of their fears just by being there. I don't have, so I promise I am ending with this part. I still haven't ended on the last part. But it's just because my recovery journey is mostly centered prior to living Oxford House, this is a twofold thing for me. I get to learn what recovery feels like and looks like outside of the carceral setting. But also now, because Oxford House is so open and inclusive and allows me to live in a house with other women, I get to learn what being a woman is like in an environment surrounded by other women. And that, to me, is just so beautiful and meaningful. So, and I know a lot of people haven't had been as lucky as I am. So I'm really grateful for that. Thank you all for listening.